Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your knowledge, your experiences. And now we are going to enter in the last keynote. It's going to be last but not least. We have the pleasure to have Mariela Glandt, medical director at Glandt Center of Diabetes Care and co-founder of EIT, who will share with us her interesting insights about the food pyramid. Mariela, it's a pleasure to have you with us whenever you are ready. Please, Mariela, let's give her a big applause.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay. Oops. All right. Okay. So let me just understand how this works before I start. Okay. So today, the title of my talk is Own Your Health, Turning the Food Pyramid Upside Down. So I'm a doctor. I'm an endocrinologist. I've been practicing diabetes for 20 plus years and seen thousands of patients. About 8 years ago, I started understanding that we weren't doing the best job, that we could treat diabetes a hell of a lot better. And once I started seeing this and implementing this in my practice, I really, you want to share it with the world. You want everybody to know about this. And this is actually what turned me into also an entrepreneur. So my vision really is empowering people to really understand that their health is in their hands. And I think it's doable. I think we need to let people know that they have a lot more control than they really think they do. If we look at the diabetes epidemic, I think this is really the epidemic of the 21st century. It's really out of control. So if you look at 1980, there were 108 million people in the world with diabetes. And in 2019, there were 463 million people with diabetes. This is over a 300% increase. This is much more of an increase than the rise in population. So we have something that's underlying also the COVID epidemic, okay? Most of the people that died from COVID had insulin resistance or diabetes. And so we need to pay a lot of attention to this. And diabetes is just the beginning. People, they check their sugar, they might be tired, they might be symptomatic from the diabetes today. But this is just the tip of the iceberg because really diabetes affects every single organ in the body. Strokes and heart attacks, impotence, kidney failure leading to dialysis, increased cancer, nerve damage leading to amputations. It's no laughing matter. This is really, really serious. And Alzheimer's and many more, joint pains, the list is exhausted. But bottom line is that this is very costly to individuals, but also to society. Diabetes is draining our healthcare system. By 2030, we'll be spending $2.1 trillion on diabetes alone globally. And if we look at Europe, in 1999, we spent $29 billion in diabetes in general, and has now increased to $189.3 billion in 2021. And America is actually much worse. So let's see what we're talking about here. We are eating our way to diabetes. So I want to show you a little video that we made to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about.
Your journey as a human being began millions of years ago. We all began as hunters-gatherers, eating the most nutritious food there is, meat. For over 2 million years, our digestive system adapted to absorb the fat-rich animal nutrients and transfer them into our bloodstream as essential building blocks and energy sources for our 37 trillion living cells. Some of the energy is immediately consumed by the body, and the rest stored as reserves for times when food is not available. To do so, the pancreas releases a storing hormone called insulin, which stores the unused energy in designated fat cells as reserve. After all the energy is used and stored, insulin levels go down, and fat is gradually released back into the bloodstream to be used as energy. For 2 million years, your body had evolved to store fat after you eat, and then to burn it as fuel between meals. Around 10,000 years ago, during the agricultural revolution, people turned almost entirely to plants, especially grains, for their survival. Cultivated grains could feed millions, and civilizations grew and thrived around the world. Grains contain high concentrations of carbohydrates, which are essentially sugars. They are broken down in our gut into glucose, which our bodies love to use as a fast-burning fuel. To do so, the pancreas must release large amounts of insulin, the storing hormone, which is needed to open special pathways in the cell's membranes and let glucose in. Most of the glucose is taken up by our muscles. The rest is stored in the liver or converted into fats, which are stored by insulin in fat cells. After 2 million years, glucose replaced fats as our main source of energy, which meant that after every meal, our bodies were exposed to high insulin levels. But since most people ate only 1 or 2 meals a day, followed by long hours of fasting and hard work, their insulin levels always dropped back to normal. It all changed 200 years ago with the Industrial Revolution that soon led to the mass production of industrial foods packed with carbohydrates like refined sugars, seed oils, and artificial starches. They were cheap, tasty, and convenient, and gradually changed our eating habits. We began snacking between meals and eating between snacks, forcing our pancreas to release more and more insulin throughout the day, and leaving us very little time to tap into our fat reserves. In the 1970s, the U.S. government recommended, with no real scientific proof, to follow a low-fat, high-carb diet. If you've been following this recommended diet and snacking between meals on processed foods, your blood is constantly filled with glucose. For most of the day, your pancreas is working very hard to ensure that the glucose levels in your blood remain normal. Over time, as you age, the insulin levels in your blood remains constantly high, which prevents you from burning your stored fat. There is plenty of fat to be used as energy, but it is not accessible, so you feel hungry. So you eat a high-carb food. Your blood fills with glucose. Your pancreas secretes large amounts of insulin. Your cells use some glucose. The rest is stored as fat. Your cells need more fuel, but you can't access your stored energy because of high insulin levels. So you become hungry again. It's a vicious cycle, putting you at a much greater risk of developing diabetes, heart disease, and cancer.
Okay, it's a lot of information to take in, but I think it's important to understand that insulin plays a key role here. And if we look at normal insulin secretion, okay, then a healthy metabolism works like this. When we eat, insulin goes up, and between meals, it goes down to very low levels. And what happens in insulin resistance, which is what we just learned about, is that we eat and insulin goes up, but then it doesn't go down all the way. So as was said in the video, we can't tap into our stores of fat. We cannot burn fat when insulin levels are high. How do I know that somebody has insulin resistance? Well, it's very easy as a doctor. First of all, there's weight gain around the abdomen, okay, in the waist. There are high triglycerides. We have low HDL, high blood pressure, and also high sugars. So diabetes is just a manifestation, okay? It's just a symptom of insulin resistance, but a very serious one. It's an acute, very serious symptom. So in essence, diabetes is caused by what we eat. If it were just a genetic thing, we wouldn't see that change over the last 100 years. So we know that food is the most important factor. There are others, but food is the most important. So when we've got the carbs, especially in the forms of sugars with fructose and the combination with seed oils that we find in processed foods, this leads to high insulin. And the high insulin over time becomes insulin resistance. Okay, the body doesn't want to store anymore. Okay, it's resisting the insulin. And then we get diabetes. So basically, if we take out the things that require insulin, we can eat very well when we eat meat, chicken, fish, eggs, and vegetables. So let's see, this is a new paradigm, okay? So the current paradigm actually says that type 2 diabetes is a progressive disease. You'll see this everywhere. Every single lecture for a diabetes conference, the WHO, everybody says diabetes is a progressive disease. But this is true, okay? This is true if we keep doing what we're doing, okay? What are we doing? We're telling people to eat a low-fat diet, a calorie-restricted diet. A low-fat diet, by definition, is a high-carb diet, okay? High carb, high insulin. If we keep treating type 2 diabetics with medications that increase insulin, it doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, right? Because we just talked about the fact that type 2 diabetes is too much insulin. If we check the insulin levels of type 2 diabetics, they are actually high. The body is resisting it. So giving more insulin is a bit like giving an alcoholic more alcohol to get away from the tremors or their symptoms. You will treat the symptoms, but we're not treating the disease, and actually the disease progresses. And last but not least, we need to be taking care of, the care that people are getting today is usually fragmented and not enough psychological support, which is really key it's a complex issue. Diabetes is complex, and we need to target all sides. So if we're treating the symptoms, diabetes is a progressive disease and patients get worse. This is not so if we treat the root cause. The new paradigm says that if we actually take away diabetes by definition is also an intolerance to carbohydrates. If I take away the carbohydrate, I actually start to get better. And I will do this by giving satiating, nutritious food. And therefore, the body's not looking, the body's not craving when you're getting what you need. And medications should be those that lower sugar by lowering insulin. And actually, the new medications today are doing this, but we're still giving insulin a lot of the time, and that doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. And we need continuous support as well. So patients get better, and we're able to reverse disease. So let me tell you a little bit about how I implemented this new paradigm in my life. And I'll go through these, starting with the Glandt Center. The Glandt Center was born in 2015 in Tel Aviv, started by myself with my husband in the background as support. We are a multidisciplinary team. We have 3 doctors, 3 dietitians, coaches, psychotherapists, nurses that come together where we give medications, everything aligned with our philosophy, medications that lower insulin, the nutrition that lowers insulin, technology that helps us to enable this, and the psychotherapy. That's a very important pillar. Here's a patient, Nicholas Kopitman, obese his whole life, really suffering with weight gain. Was told to take insulin. A1C was 10%. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's a very uncontrolled sugar levels. And he lost 28 kilos within the first year, and his A1C is 5%, meaning his sugars are completely normal, and we're already going on 5 years. And the results are dramatic. Nicholas is one patient of many. We've, in about 80% of our patients, we stop insulin altogether. 60% no longer they don't meet the criteria for diabetes after 3 months. And we have a 10-kilo weight loss on average after 6 months. So we've treated about 3,000 patients. And this has been a growing journey and a constant growing. And from this and from the excitement, because people don't get off insulin. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but nobody gets off insulin. Okay, once it's almost it's a sentence for life, but it's so exciting to get people off of insulin that I felt we must educate people, not just because of the insulin, but in general. Most people don't measure their insulin. They have no idea that they're walking around with high insulin. Only if you're injecting insulin, you know. But together with Ariel Shitrit, we founded Metabolics, which is an NGO, in which our aim is to educate people on how to be metabolically healthy. And we have conferences, yearly conferences, as well as education throughout the year. Our conferences are 100% sponsored by individuals, which was kind of a surprise to the Hilton when they hosted us, because they had never done a medical conference without pharma, and they were shocked, but we did it. And we brought people from abroad to really teach us how to improve our metabolic health. So a lot of times in my clinic, when I tell people that they can't eat bread anymore, it's hard for them, okay? It's a cultural thing, and it's difficult to imagine life without bread. Now, I've been doing this for 8 years, so I'm okay with it, but it's a change. And people go home and they make they substitute breads in their kitchen and try to find breads in the supermarket. But what's happening is that I didn't like all the ingredients that I found in the bread. So I said, well, why don't we just make something with natural ingredients? And this is how Eat Sane was born. We sell breads, as well as buns, as well as burekas, pastries. We sell pizza and many other yummy things that make it sustainable for some people. Not everybody needs this, but it's if you want to lead a low-carb lifestyle, then this is a fantastic option to help you make it easier. And lastly, I want to tell you about Ona Health. Ona Health is I'm the CEO of Ona Health. It's a revolutionary virtual first diabetes care platform. And what we're aiming to do, okay, is through an app, one for the patient and one for the caretakers, the providers, which is a doctor as well as a coach, is to scale up what we did at the Glandt Center. So the Glandt Center, we were able to help one person at a time. But now with technology, AI, as well as natural language processing, we are able to reach many, many, many more people and make this more affordable and even more efficient. So it is, like I said, it's a multi-pronged approach. You need many things at once. We need the new paradigm is the medications, it's the diet, and it's the psychology. About 20% of patients don't succeed, and we have to really understand the concept of food addiction and work very hard on treating this as well. So that's part of what we do. Technology is what's giving us the support. The team is also giving us support, a team of various specialties, including sugar addiction specialists. Community is absolutely key. And as I heard mentioned before, the regenerative farming is something that needs to be a part of this, okay? The delivery of food that's coming, the ecosystem must be closed. So this is an integral part of the success in the long term. So the patient journey is that the patient onboards, this is a clinic, okay? You're meeting a doctor. This is not an app. So the patient must upload their medications and their labs, and they get education. So when they meet the doctor, they actually know what we're about to do. The doctor makes those changes, starts the de-prescribing, and then the patient will meet with a coach. It's a virtual meeting, but then it'll be through the app, a way of being in constant touch, ongoing questions, information, and there's feedback from the patient because the patient's glucose and ketones and blood pressure and weight, and even if they have CGMs as well, coming into the system. And there will be doctor alerts if necessary, and a lot of backups if things don't go right. So after 3 months, you meet with a doctor again, you do labs again, and then we see where you are. From sick to non-sick. This is where we expect you to be. If not, we'll do it again. Some patients are sick for 30 years. That's all right. It takes time. Okay, we didn't get there overnight. It takes time, but eventually we get there, and then we're in the maintenance phase. So a few takeaway points that I'd like to make. First of all, challenge the obvious, okay? Just because you've heard something many, many times, it doesn't mean it's true. And it was a huge shocker for me to understand that saturated fat is an amazing thing, for example, of the many myths I had to burst while learning about this new paradigm. Can be mind-blowing sometimes what you see when you go really deep into the science of things. Number two, I really encourage you, I invite you to adopt this new paradigm, even if you don't have diabetes, okay? Because 88% of Americans actually are walking around with at least one symptom of insulin resistance. We don't have to be there. There's no reason for us to be sick, okay? So I encourage you to look, to read, to get into what I'm saying, to just have an open mind about it at least. And number three, own your health. So, and seriously, I encourage you, welcome you to get started. And for more information, you can look us up. So thank you very much for this great opportunity.
Thank you, Mariela. Thank you so much.